today. One will be, I put up a post a few days ago about a Sydney nightclub, Club 77. Now, let me know if this sounds ridiculous or not. I think this is absolutely cooked, but is this just a sign of where we're going? So we're going to go straight into it. So a Sydney nightclub, Club 77, has been praised for adopting a safety policy that includes potentially removing patrons who are staring at nightclub goers without their consent. So I've always thought staring is a little weird, but when we're talking about kicking people out or bringing a law in for it, there's a lot of people that are going to be in some trouble. So Club 77 in the inner city suburb of Darlinghurst will have a security guard wearing a high visibility pink vest who can be approached by patrons who feel they are being harassed. Numero uno, number one, if someone doesn't like someone, they can just go, this person's being weird and staring at me, like you would be in school, make up a lie, and then that person gets in trouble. So that's, we're already in trouble there. Dane Grohl says the club is creating a safe space for people to enjoy their night. Harassment is a big issue that we've been seeing around the world, especially in venues, Mr. Grohl told ABC Radio Sydney Breakfast presenter James Valentine. Now, I'm all for people being safe, and, I guess a lot of this is directed at women who, do get approached by guys, and some guys are just super creepy as it is, it's just how it is. But staring at someone, and what are the rules too, I have this, debate about it all the time where how long is too long before it's weird. I mean, I think staring in general is weird, but I think anything longer than 3 seconds, if you're at the gym and you're staring at someone for longer than 3 seconds, that is weird. You're talking about 10 and 20 seconds, that's almost like a crime. It's just if we do this 1, 2, 3, that's borderline weird as it is. Then you start talking about 5, 10, 15 seconds. That is a long time to be staring at someone. But generally people don't go out by themselves, so you're going to have people with you. If I was staring at someone for 10, 20 seconds, my mate should immediately smack me for being weird anyway, let alone, I just think it's in a bit of a weird one, if you're getting banned or, bringing a law in. But they're just saying they want to be one step ahead of it. Unwanted staring and leering are examples of sexual harassment according to the Australian Human Rights Commission. Now, this is where I get a bit iffy. Unwanted staring and leering are examples of sexual harassment. Look, at the end of the day, men stare at women, women stare at men stare at men, women stare at women. If you're attractive, our eyes are drawn to it, you know what I mean? Same thing with fast cars or nice food. If it looks good, I'm looking at it. It's just how it is. Now, if someone told me that was sexual harassment, that is the most insane thing. But if I'm staring at someone for 20 seconds or whatever it is, isn't it also on me to just go, okay, I'm just going to look away? Because now out of sight, out of mind, you know what I mean? Is that where it is? But I think staring versus going up and then approaching someone, that's different. But if you're just sitting there staring, you're weird, but, if we're bordering on the lines of sexual harassment, I think that's a bit of an, I don't know, it's a bit icky for me. I think putting that in the sexual harassment category, when you're looking at crimes that are legitimate, sexual harassment, rape, all those kinds of things, I don't put staring in that same category as just being a general pest and weirdo in public. But let me know what you think. Do you think it's a good thing? Do you think it's a bad thing? I mean, generally this is more of an issue that I see affecting women than guys, because I'm assuming, the vast majority of it's going to be guys staring at women. So what do you think? Do you think it should stay? Do you think it should go? Do you think it should be expanded like an actual law? I don't know. So completely 180 now. Oh, not kind of 180, but we're going back. We spoke about it last week with the UK banning or looking at banning the extra large bully breeds. And I sort of said, if we're looking at that, then let's just ban shitty kids and, all those kinds of things, which obviously you can't do. But there's been a petition which was always going to happen. So this is a petition last week. So basically the UK Prime Minister came out and said they're going to ban them. And then a few days later, a petition came out which has already accrued more than 540,000 signatures in just 5 days. So this was last week. So this would be in excess of 600,000 plus already. the petition launched by father of two, Glyn Seville, a bully dog owner from Oxfordshire, simply states bad owners are to blame, not the breed. Don't ban the bully, which is common sense. I mean, you're looking at banning an animal because of owners. It's no different. It's no different to any other state. I mean, those dogs were bred for fighting, but it's not, you know what I mean? It's like if you are a kid who's brought up in a violent, drug-addicted household, that's generally where you're headed. But if you're an animal or a child who's brought up in a loving, respectful, educational background, then that's generally where you're going to lead. You know, you grow where you were born. You know, it's those kinds of things are learned behavior, but it's not bred into you. You know what I mean? So, I still think it's going to happen. I still think they'll likely ban it, but I think they should just increase fines and increase jail terms. I mean, it's no different to if I was driving a fast car and killed somebody. They're not going to ban the make of the car, are they? No, they're going to do me. So if you're a dog owner and your dog gets out and does something horrible, then, you know, they generally delete the animal, which is a shame, but there should be way harsher penalties for owners. And just on the delete thing, because I know you can't talk about suicides and killing and all that kind of thing, which I just did. I was looking at, in a separate video completely, doing the world record for suicide runs. Everyone in high school or as a kid did suicide runs for sports. But apparently now you can't call them that. Apparently it's a thing that it's got wiped and it's called lines. So people will run lines as when you're in high school or primary school, that's what we're going to be doing. So I'm sure there are a lot of people who are going to be wanting to do lines rather than suicides. So I didn't know that was a thing, but that's a thing now. You can't call them that. So now we're doing the 180. So as I'm sure you saw earlier on in the week, Dan Andrews has resigned as Victoria's Prime Minister after almost a decade on the top job. If you follow it, you look at the last 6 months or even pre-pandemic, the people who were the leaders of those countries or states were always up a shit creek because there was no COVID handbook on how to handle it, you know what I mean? So anything bad that happened, you're generally going to look at the PM or the president or whatever the leader is. You just look at Trump. Trump was the leader through the pandemic and then got ousted post-pandemic. Morrison, similar thing. Andrews, similar thing, although he did have a few muck-ups. I mean, you just look at how he handled the Commonwealth Games thing and it cost the state literally 200 or 300 million that they had to settle for, that now the taxpayers have to fork out for. But I think this guy was on borrowed time for the last 6 to 12 months. I mean, he was only, put through another term in the last 10 months. So within the last 10 months of going through a new term, he's quit the job. And, they come up with the signature responses as to why, family, it's time when it's time. It's like, buddy, you were on borrowed time as it was. But in a statement he brought out, 9 years ago, I visited the government house to be sworn in as the 48th Premier of Victoria. It has been the honour and privilege of my life, he told reporters. I'm also proud to think of all the things that we have achieved over these 9 years in good times and always working hard to do what's right, not simply what's popular, which I agree with, but it just depends on whether that worked or not, which it didn't for his time. He made the announcement at a snap press conference at State Parliament on Tuesday with his wife, Kath, beside him. Recently, talking to my kids, and Kath, this is where they get through the general statement, which they typically all do. Thoughts of what life will be like after this job has started to creep in, which is already weird because he only just got re-elected. You're generally not thinking about that when you just got re-elected, so you can kind of see how it sounds BS. I've always known that the moment that happens, it is time to go and give this privilege, this amazing responsibility to someone else. It's not an easy job being Premier of our state, but it's not a complaint. That is just a fact. And for sure it will be any job in the public eye because it's all hate. You very rarely get praised for the good things you do. And I'm sure he did good things. I'm not going to sit here and say he did all bad things, but at the end of the day, the mistakes that he made were big ones. I mean, that his state was one of the last ones to get out of all the mandates and lockdowns. he sort of was just like lockdown, 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 mandate, 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 whereas other states were just slowly coming out of it. We wanted to keep him in there. And, you're always going to cop a bit of flack for that. But again, you don't know where it was coming from. Maybe he was generally just, people were safer at homes. But, when you're looking at the other states who were coming out of it, I live in Queensland, we were one of the first ones out. We were pretty much back to normal before anyone else. But, maybe there's pros and cons to that. Maybe the cons were that we did it too early. We needed to stay locked down early, which I don't agree with, but maybe that's an argument. And the pros, we got back to normal somewhat sooner rather than later. But he continues to go, it requires 100% from you and your family. That, of course, is time limited, and now is the time to step away. Mr. Andrews became Premier in November of 2014, booting out first-term Liberal government and led Labor 2 more victories in 2018 and 2022. So he was only re-elected in November, I think, of 2022. So 9 or 10 months ago, which, at the end of the day, he's not going to sit here and say, I was on borrowed time, but someone has had a conversation with him, or he knows that people were having conversations with him behind closed doors. That's generally why these things happen. You don't go 10 months into a re-election and go, this is actually not for me. You would have known this prior to re-election. You would have just gone, no, I'm actually not going up for it again. But I think he knew the time was coming, and I don't think another 3 years he would have lasted. So he's like, you know what, I'm just going to go out on my terms, but the terms that he's leaving, they're too general. It's too predictable what he was going to say. Sticking with the government and politics and stuff like that. So we have concerns over a new potential virus. So in the last couple of days, a potentially fatal respiratory virus called HMPV, which you got to remember, this time of year, we're getting colder and, the temperature's changing. Flus and all that kind of regular stuff we had before are always going to be a thing. People get sick. Your 90-year-old grandma got sick. It's just what happens. But obviously in the last couple of years, we had a pretty unique situation come up. So HMPV is spreading in New South Wales and is likely to outpace influenza and COVID-19 this spring. So pretty much everything in New South Wales, everything starts there for whatever reason. It's like a test dummy. Everything just bad starts there and then goes everywhere else. So I'm going to butcher how this is pronounced. Human metapneumovirus, HMPV, we're going to be calling it HMPV moving forward, can cause upper and lower respiratory disease in people of all ages and can become particularly fatal in children under the age of 5 and people with weakened immune systems. New South Wales Health detected around 1,168 cases last week, but infection numbers are likely to be underestimated as people may not seek to get PCR tested because we generally never used to. We got sick, how do we fix it? It's never we got tested for those kinds of things. Over the last 2 weeks, HMPV cases rose from 640 to 1,168, a trajectory set to outpace COVID-19. Again, take all of this with a grain of salt. I mean, all they're doing now is just, there's a new flu. They're just putting a name to it. That's all it is. So when you hear of a new virus, new pandemic, new whatever it is, it's just a new version of the flu. Everyone had the flu. Everyone got sick from the flu. Everyone had a runny nose from the flu. And if you happen to be already sickly or a weakened immune system or unhealthy in general, you were already predestined for shitness. It's just how it is. If you were overweight and unhealthy, you generally got sicker. There are genetic freaks who can drink and smoke and live to 100, sure. But the vast majority of us, if we're not healthy or we're overweight or we're just not, we're not getting enough sleep or drinking enough water or just not eating correctly, then we generally, we've got a weakened immune system, so we generally get sick more. Just how it is. But again, we're just putting a name to a new thing, so people don't need to freak out. Senior medical virologist Professor William Rawlinson says, late winter and early spring is the usual time health experts tend to see an increase in human metapneumovirus. Smart. Common sense, please. We're seeing more spread, less masks, because people are not going to be wearing masks. Stick that. So I got asked the other day, these things that you can see here and there. Some days they get worse, some days they're fine. There's little red marks you can see on my face are purely from wearing the masks. So I was working in a warehouse and it's just hot. It was during summer and you're breathing on your face, for 8 hours straight, 8, 10, 12 hours, however long it was. And you're constantly breathing because you have to wear the masks. And you do that for 6, 12 plus months, it's gonna have some bacteria build up on your skin. And that's what happened. Dermatitis and things like that. That's what was created from this, wearing these masks. So I'm definitely not rocking those again. We're seeing more spread, less masks, so the spread is occurring. And this is the usual time of the year we do see HMPV or RSV and other respiratory viruses, which again, because it's that time of the year. But again, masks, for me, no bueno. But yeah, again, we're just putting a label to something else. That's all it is. So no freak out needed. Now we're going to touch on the voice stats quickly because there was a poll that came out. Now again, with these polls, take them with a grain of salt because they're generally a couple percentage points off here and there. But the vast majority of them are in the favor of the no so far. This one, I think, is a little off with percentage-wise. So Freshwater Strategy, Leo Shanahan, says the current polling for the Voice to Parliament is extremely concerning for the Yes campaign. Recent polling from Freshwater Strategy has shown support for the Voice referendum has dropped to 33%. Now, I don't think it's that low. I definitely don't think it's at 67%. I could cop a 60-40 or even 55-45. But yeah, I definitely don't think it's that low. Like I said, all these polls, don't take them as gospel. But the yes is definitely down in, versus the two. You've got the yes, no, and either don't know or not voting. I know people who just aren't going to do it, and that's fine. But yeah, I know more people who are voting no based off the information that's at hand. Mr. Shanahan says the trend is clearly down and support has been crashing. Where does the yes vote go now from here? He told Sky News host Shari Markson, it is a substantial worry. It doesn't mean they can pull it out, but it is extremely concerning. So again, they could switch it around. I think they're trying to get as many celebrity endorsements as they can, which, that's what you've got to do. I mean, it's no different to a marketing campaign or when they're going around for their trying to get re-elected, you bring in whatever you can. I mean, at the end of the day, this is like a popularity contest. You've got to do what, if you've got to shake hands and kiss babies and do whatever you got to do, then that's what you got to do. So then you got to bring in some celebrities. And I mean, you saw the Kamal thing, which is quite funny. I mean, he got brought in to talk about the yes because they thought he was a yes, which he was originally a no. Then he was a yes. Now he's back to a no. So they brought him on to talk about the yes, being a yes advocate. And then he changed and was like, I'm actually a no, the no's a good thing, blah, 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 paraphrasing. And they're kind of like, whoa, what's not now realizing that they've just made a massive stuff up. But I think we've got about less than a month to go. We've got 3 weeks roughly to go. 4 to 5 weeks to get an actual result from it. It'll be interesting. I'm probably not going to be talking about this much more after this until probably like the week before, just going to get sick of talking about it. But I just generally hope that however it goes, yes or no, it is a done thing. We move on, make the best of whatever situation comes in, and then we're good. As long as it's not divisive or, these protests that start getting a bit physical and stuff like that, hopefully that's just put to bed and we can just move on with whatever happens. Speaking of moving on, I saw, we've got this youth crime epidemic, depending on which state you're in, obviously. It varies state to state with the statistics, but in Queensland, we're not doing too bad with youth crime. But I was having a brain thought the other day and came to a thought process of, it's obviously flawed because I just thought about it, but it's kind of a mix up between the US laws and a mix of our own in terms of how I think we could combat it. It's not going to get too much support, but I'm just going to read like some statistics. So for the youth offenders, there were 10,304 offenders between 10 and 17. This is in the last financial year. aged between 10 and 17 years, they comprise 13% of total offenders. But that's purely because the next bracket is like 18 to 50, and they make up basically the rest. So at 13% sounds really small, but it's only in comparison to the 30-year gap for the next one. You know, you've got 10 to 17, you've got that 17 window, that 7-year window that makes up 13%, and then that 30 plus year makes up 80. So you also got to remember too, those 10 and 17-year-olds are only going to be funneling into the next age bracket and building that number up too. So another statistic for you. So of the 4,536 young people under youth justice supervision on an average day, most were 81% of them were male, which that's not shocking. I kind of generally thought that there would be more males than females. I probably thought it'd be like a 70+%, but 81 doesn't shock me either. So the theory that I came up with, and again, it's probably not going to work because we don't like violence at this point in time. So if you look at the states and their self-defense laws, you know, they're quite loose. Whether that's a good thing or not, it's up to you. But ours are quite stringent. You know, you can't put your hands on someone. You know, you can't even, you know, you look at somebody could break into my home with the intention to steal my shit that I've worked for, injure themselves, and I can be sued. And you'd be like, oh, that's total bullshit. I'm like, well, no, because it has happened. So, and the wording in this is very funny too. So it is up to the court to decide whether the homeowner acted in self-defense based on the evidence presented before it. In extreme cases, an intruder who is injured during a home invasion may also have the right to pursue a civil claim against the homeowner, who is in turn has the right to dispute the claim. No issue there. Can a burglar sue a homeowner for injury? For example, a burglar who is injured while breaking and entering is prevented from suing the homeowner. However, if the burglar cannot be convicted of breaking and entering because of mental illness, he or she could still sue the homeowner for injury sustained while unlawfully on the homeowner's premises. So all you have to do is play the mental health card and you can now sue someone. So that's what I was saying. You can break into someone's home and try and steal their stuff and sue them if you got injured, which saying that sounds ridiculous. Reading it sounds more ridiculous. The fact that it can be in a court of law is mental, but that's what we're in at the moment. So going back to my original theory, it's a kind of a hybrid between their laws and our laws mixed together. And, you know, I joke with a couple of mates about this. Oh, you know, the movie The Purge, would that be a good idea? I don't think it's a good idea to legalize all crime for 24 hours. But sometimes you're like, man, everyone knows one or two people that just need a beating. You know what I mean? And I'm not an advocate for violence whatsoever. But there are just times where you're trying to talk your way out of something, or you're trying to communicate, doesn't work. You try to walk away, hasn't worked. Person just keeps coming at you and at you and at you. Nothing works. All of a sudden, violence ensues. And you know what? Sometimes it's just a great way to get out of a situation. Just the threat of violence alone. You know what? Let's fight. Oh, no, I was only joking. Exactly. So my idea is giving the homeowner, renter, whatever you want to call it, the occupier of the home, a bit more freedom and power in terms of, in my mind, if someone breaks into your home, if you have a family, if you don't have a family, whatever, you have to think whoever that person is or people are in your home to hurt you, regardless of whether they're in there to steal a loaf of bread, the keys to your car, or to physically hurt you. You have to have the mindset of they're in here to hurt me or my family, so you need to react accordingly. So my thought process was, and I call it the Bad Guy Act. Now, the Bad Guy Act basically puts power and protection back on the homeowner or renter, and it's within reason. Like, someone can't just break in and you kill them. It doesn't work like that. You know what I mean? I'm not all for it, because that's obviously excessive force. Again, within reason. If someone tries to kill you and you can prove that and you kill them, sorry buddy, you lost. But if someone breaks into your home